beautiful people. How's everyone doing today? Oh my God, I had such an amazing weekend. I was in Oman for 4 days riding. It was just amazing, very much needed. So now I can start the week on a very, very, very high feeling and very high note. I hope you all had a great weekend. Those who live in this part of the world, specifically in the UAE and also Oman, we had a long weekend, so this is why we could do a lot of things. So I hope you're having a great day. I hope you're having a great Monday, a very good start of the week. And today I'm here with you because there's a topic that is very, very important. I struggled with it for some time without even realizing that I was struggling with it until I did. And now I'm sharing this information with you just to give you some kind of an eye opener to things that happen in our lives. So the topic is going to be about fear today, and fear is a very, very, very wide topic. We can talk about it forever. So this is the kind of the topic that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be together for around, 50 to 60 minutes. I hope you enjoy the topic. I hope you enjoy everything I'm going to share with you. And I want you to stay to the end because I have an invitation for you. So stick with me and we're going to start now. Before I just dive deep into the topic of fear, I want to share a story with you. I shared it today, like in on a high level, although it doesn't look like it's on a high level, but it is on a high level. So basically, when I used to work in the corporate world, or I don't want to say actually in the corporate world, I want to say when I used to work for others as not being my own boss. Yeah. I kind of like working. I enjoy working. I love it. I like spending my time working. Some people might think I'm a workaholic. It's possible, yes. But that's not what was happening. And this is not why I'm mentioning this story. The reason why I'm talking about this today is because underneath all that, there was something that was holding me back. There was something that was keeping me in that zone where I felt safe, I felt secure when I was working for other people in my life, when I was working in the corporate world or even in the private sector, because I had both experiences. So, and when I started working on who I am, even after I left the corporate world and the private sector and I started working for myself, I did not realize what was happening then until I started working on myself and I started realizing that this is what was happening in that period of my time in like from the age of 25, like for almost 10 to 15 years, this is what was happening with me. I was stuck. I was worried. I didn't know what to do because in my mind, I actually was thinking that I am meant for more. I can do more. I always have something more to give. And every time I wanted to do something, every time I wanted to push forward with this, I would stop myself one way or another. And little did I know then, because it didn't even cross my mind that I was stopping myself. But I was doing things that would either stop me from moving forward or developing, or things that would, like unwillingly, really, it wasn't something that I was planning for, to maybe hurt my career or hurt my work or do something that would jeopardize my development, let's say, in that business or in that job. So lately, when I started looking back, because I worked so hard on who I am, and I went so deep to understand everything that I have been through in my life, because I felt that this is what I needed to do for me, and not only just for me. I felt that this is what I wanted and I needed to do for even the people who are around me. So I started looking into the decisions that I used to make when I was in the job role, or when I was working for others and getting paid like a salary and stuff like that. So the more I looked at it, the more I realized that what was holding me back and what was not allowing me to move forward in those roles and just grow the way I thought I wanted to was basically me protecting myself from what I didn't know. So, and that kind of protecting oneself from the things that we don't know, from the unknown, is a fear. It's the fear of the unknown. It's the fear of not knowing where we stand. Not knowing, for example, if we will have a roof on top of our head. Not knowing if we will be able to have food on the table. So this fear of not knowing what's going to happen is something that always keeps us in this cocoon of protection, where we feel like, okay, now we are safe, so it's better to keep it this way. Now, in my case, in my story, I was actually always trying to become something more, always trying to excel, always trying to ask for more, to want to deliver more. And I always wanted to grow. But I really didn't know then what it was that I wanted to grow to. And this is what kept me stuck. That fear of not knowing, that fear of what's going to happen next. So I put myself in a situation where I would ask for this growth and I would want to grow, but I would also sabotage that because I was afraid of what's going to happen if I grow. And will I be able to grow to become that person that at that time, I didn't even know that person was there. That person who is here now. I didn't even know I had that. I didn't even know that was what I wanted. So it was this much of uncertainty, this much of not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing what I wanted. This is all those fears, all those uncertainties together molded that part of my life and made that part of my life what it was then, and made me stuck in that space of it's safe here, let's stay here, and instead of wanting to grow, let's be submissive and take on whatever comes our way and be happy with it. So I was trying, like there was this struggle inside of me. Am I moving forward in my life, or am I going to stay where I am? And that struggle, like it was there for like almost, I don't know, maybe almost 12 to 15 years. I was stuck in that, wondering what's going to happen next. Actually, exactly 15 years now that I think about it. So when I started working in the private sector, when I came to the UAE, when I left my home country and I came here, I only wanted to be safe. I only wanted to be secured. And everything that I was doing from that perspective because I was so worried and so afraid that I wouldn't be able to survive or provide for myself to start with. And at that time, I wanted to support my family. I wanted to support my sister while she was going to college. So for me, it was very important that I protect everything that I was doing at that time. And then something started pushing me to move forward, to go beyond that fear, or to go, and I didn't even realize that it was a fear that was holding me back. I'm telling you, I only knew that just when I started diving into my own life and diving into everything that was happening with me prior to 2018, when I started thinking about my life and everything that happened during my life before. And I realized that fear, because I was worried whether I will be able to provide to myself and whether I would be able to support my family, I started connecting kind of the dots to understand where that fear started and how it started and when it started. And then I realized how connected this was to my childhood, to how I was raised, to where I was raised. You see, I grew up in a country where there was war. I grew up in a country where there was lack of everything because of the war. And there was always this worry of whether we're going to be able to survive, whether we're going to be able to have, all the means of survival, the water, the food, the fuel for the heat, if it's winter time. So everything was scarce. Everything was not just available for us as we were kids. And that created a huge amount of uncertainty and fear that we carried with us throughout our lives. And this is where all of this anxiousness of wanting to become more, of wanting to make more money, of wanting to be more successful, that created this tension, it all came from there. It all came from not knowing whether I will be able to provide or whether I will be able to sustain myself and even support my family. So thinking about that fear that I had of the unknown, of what am I going to do, and that fear that made me stuck for a while just because I did not want to let go of that security, that net that I had, because I was afraid that if I do, I wouldn't be able to provide for myself. I wouldn't be able to provide for my family if they need support. So I was stuck in that place and I didn't even realize. Now when I look back at those days, I'm thinking, if only I knew then how many opportunities I have missed just because I was scared, just because I was going back to my childhood and going back to how I was raised and where I was raised. Not exactly how, but where I was raised and what was happening. The circumstances of my childhood were so difficult that they made me always worry and always on the edge when I was in my own career and building my own life. Excuse me. Until that day came, and even until today, I don't really remember how I had that gut and that courage to just leave everything behind and venture into the unknown, and took a decision to just let go of everything, of that security net and safety net that I had. I took a very conscious decision to let go of it and leave it behind me and just move forward, even without knowing what's waiting for me. And I didn't know at that time, I really didn't know that I was conquering a fear. I didn't know that. But that's exactly what was happening. I was conquering that fear. And I did conquer that fear, just without knowing. And the reason why I'm telling you this story today is because I want to be able, or I want to know these things so that I can move faster and I can conquer faster, instead of having to be stuck in one place for so long and losing years and years of my life without really doing what I know I am here to do, what I know I can do. So this is what was happening with me, and this is why today I am so determined to put this message across. I'm so determined to remind you and remind everyone that there is a way for us to get out of all the fears that we put. Because fear, I mean, obviously there are different types of fears, right? But the fear that I'm talking about here is that emotional fear, is that fear that we create for ourselves. It's not a fear that we are born with, or a fear that, it's not like a rational fear that we get, for example, let's say if we are, I don't know, in a forest and a lion shows up. That fear is a rational fear, of course, because it's the fight or flight. So should we fight or should we run for our lives? That fear is a rational fear when you are afraid of something like an imminent danger. Yes, that's a rational fear. And that's not a fear that is connected to our emotion. It's a fear of getting like in a danger zone where you could actually be, for example, killed. So us being afraid, like from where I come from, if I'm afraid of someone putting a gun to my head, or hearing, bombs and stuff like that, that's a rational fear, because I know that this could cause death, or that this could cause me to become hurt or injured. So that's a rational fear. Yes. There are other kind of fears that are like primal fears, and these fears are fears that have started a long time back, with generations and generations back, and they kind of transmitted to us through our DNA. I'll give you an example. Like if someone has this fear of snakes, I know I used to have it, by the way. So this fear, for example, or the fear of spiders, this fear, if we go back to the primitive days and generations back, people who were not afraid of spiders or snakes would be bitten by them, and they would get poisoned and they would eventually die. So those people who developed that fear, they would survive longer, and they would stay more kind of immune because they are afraid of getting closer to a snake or a spider so they won't be bit. And that's how they developed that primal fear of, for example, snakes and spiders. So they would have a longer life, so they would not get poisoned and get sick. So these are the primal fears. The third kind of fear is the irrational fear. And these are like the general fears. These are not the fears, but I just wanted to share this information so that we don't mix those, because these fears are kind of there almost all the time, especially the rational fear, which is the one that keeps you safe, right? The irrational fear is the fear of, like, when you are afraid of something, but rationally it makes zero sense. Like, for example, people who are afraid of clowns. Clowns are supposed to make you laugh and they're supposed to make you have fun. So when you are afraid of clowns, this is an irrational fear. Like, does it make sense? Maybe for someone who's afraid of clowns, it doesn't make sense, but it is an irrational fear. Okay? But these are not the fears that I'm talking about today. The fears that I'm talking about today are more of the emotional fears that we have, the fears that limit us, the fears that keep us stuck in one place. And these fears, they generate most of the time in our childhood. We could be also inheriting them from our parents, they're in our DNA, or from our ancestors. But these are fears that hold us back. These are fears that do not allow us to prevail or to succeed or to become a way much better person than or not a better person. I'm gonna say the best version of who we are, because we are all, I personally believe we are all good people. Everyone is good. Just people go through specific things in their lives, and they go through circumstances, and the way they deal with those circumstances make them different people as they go through their lives. So going back to that fear that is created within us as we go through our lives, or as we are growing up, this is the fear that will reveal itself later on in our lives. And it will reveal itself in so many different ways. There are dozens and dozens of ways how fear manifests in our lives. Today, I'm going to be focusing on a few of them. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but I'm going to be focusing on a few of them. I'm going to start by talking about one manifestation of fear that so many people, and it's amazing how many people have this manifestation of fear in their life. And when I'm going to tell it to you, you're going to be like, oh yeah, you're right. A lot of people have this kind of manifestation of fear in their life because they are afraid. They take on a certain pattern in their life or a certain mode to their life, and this becomes their life. But the major leader behind that is actually their fear. And the manifestation of their fear is that pattern, is that form in their life. The one that struck me, because I used to be that person, I was like, oh my God, I'm that person because I'm afraid. Now I understand. I understand a lot why I am, or I was that person. When I realized that this is a character or a persona that we take on because we are afraid, because we become so accustomed to that fear that we create a certain, like it's called an archetype, but it's a pattern. It's a pattern that we live. It's a sort of life that we embed, or that we take on for ourselves, that is solely based on fear. This type, or this manifestation of fear that I'm talking about, that used to be me, is the manifestation of the procrastinator or the perfectionist. So, and this is why in my post I said Erica, because Erica was like me realizing how much that was true about me, and how much I was really afraid, and how much fear was in control of my life up to a certain period of time, when I was like, no, I am not letting fear control my life anymore. And that's how I took this whole decision, and I started this whole brand new life for me, by first starting from leaving the corporate world and leaving working for others, and starting to work for myself as a first step. And then when I dug even deeper, because I was still afraid, even when I did that, there was still this fear in me, because I was still procrastinating, because I was still blaming my perfectionist idealism for not doing anything, for not moving forward, for not building what I really wanted to build for myself. So the procrastinator in me was actually the result of my fear, or it was actually the manifestation of the fear that I had. And that fear was the fear of the unknown, the fear of whether I'm going to be able to make it or not. Do I have it in me or not? Are people going to judge me? Like, this is not just one fear. This is like a combination of fears. So I became that perfectionist, that procrastinator, to protect myself. Or it was more because there's also another type, which is the of manifestation, which is the one who makes an excuse all the time. I'm going to get to that. But it wasn't, for me, it was subconsciously happening. I was not planning to be that procrastinator. Of course I wasn't. Nobody plans to be a procrastinator. Nobody wants to be a procrastinator. And procrastinators, most of the time, they just want things to be perfect. They relate that to perfectionism. And if it's not perfect, they're not going to do it. So they end up not doing anything, because we all know that perfection does not really exist. So if we are always, as procrastinators, expecting things to be perfect, we're never going to happen. We're never going to do it. We're never going to go anywhere. We're always going to be stuck. So understanding that, for me, that was my Eureka moment. Like, I found it. Now I know why I procrastinate all the time. Now I know why, and I don't do it anymore. I'm talking in the present tense, but I don't do it anymore. And this is why I'm actually doing this, because if I do it, if I still do that, if I still procrastinate, this would not be something that I would be doing. I would be trying to push this as much as possible away from me, because I would be afraid. I would be afraid of speaking up. I would be afraid of being judged. I would be afraid of, what if what if people are not benefiting from this? What if I cannot support people by doing this? What if all those what ifs, they don't exist anymore, because I stopped that pattern. But this is who I was because of my fear. That's how my fear manifested in my life. Now, in other cases, other people might have a different kind of manifestation. Another kind of manifestation of fear is the person who is always following the rules. So the rule follower. The rule follower follows the rules not because they like rules and they like, to be going with the flow. They follow rules because they are actually afraid of taking their own decisions, because they're afraid of being accountable for things or being accountable for their own decisions. And this is why they follow the rules, and they follow the rules even if those rules are not beneficial to them. Those rules might be putting them down instead of making them blossom and excel in their lives. Those rules may be, like following those rules may be even hurting other people in their lives. But they don't care because they are so worried and so afraid of being accountable or being held accountable for their own decisions. That's how much afraid they are of making their own decisions. And that's also another manifestation of fear, being afraid of accountability, or being afraid of people judging us, or being afraid of people pointing fingers. Oh, that's what they did. But you know what? From my experience, people always judge. People always want to talk. People always want to express themselves. Whether it's the right place for them to do so or not, that's something else. But people like to express themselves. So my point here is, how much do we want to listen as us? Is this what we want for ourselves? Do we want to be led by that fear of what are people going to say, or how are people going to look at me, or how am I going to be judged if I do this or if I do that? Is this what I want for myself? I know for me, definitely not. That's not what I wanted. That's not what I came here for. Now I know. Before, I was still procrastinating. I was still looking for perfection everywhere, in everything that I do, in everywhere that I look. Not anymore, because now I know that this was led by my fear. The third type of manifestation of fear in our lives is when we become an outcast. And when we become a people pleaser. And when we become a people pleaser, we do everything in our power just to please others, again, because we are afraid of how people look at us, or what would they say about us. So that fear of being judged is like one of the most major fears that a lot of people have. The fear of being judged by others and whether we are good enough or not. The people pleaser is a manifestation of that fear. So a person would just go out of their way to make sure that everyone else is happy, and most of the time at their own happiness, at their own expense of happiness. So people pleasers most of the time are just making sure everyone around them is happy except them. So they are most of the time unhappy. And they're most of the time drained because all that they're trying to do is to please others. Now, I like to think about it like, if we are always drained and if we are always out of our way just to please others, for how long can we do that, you think? For how long can we have this essence that we can give to others and still have more to give? Because if we are always drained, and if we are always putting ourselves, like giving everything that we have, we're gonna end up emptying that tank. And then if we don't have this, we won't be able to give it. So we want to remember that our life, before anything else, should matter to us. And before anyone else, it should mean something to us. It should mean, and this is why I always talk about self-love, and this is why I always mention that we want to choose us before anything else, even before our success, because when you choose you, you've already chosen success. When you choose you, you've already chosen love. When you choose you, you've already chosen everyone else around you. Because when you start with you and when you start with loving who you are, everything around you will be a reflection of that. So the people that will be coming into your life, they will actually want to give you rather than take from you. They will actually want to be that person that is like kind of up to your standard, because your standard now is quite high. Your standard now is based on you loving who you are, knowing who you are, and loving everything about you. So then you don't really need to please everyone around you, because everyone around you is going to love you just the way you are, because this is how you love yourself. And I just gave you a simple way of getting out of that persona of being the people pleaser. So instead of just pleasing everyone, start by pleasing who you are, pleasing yourself, and then everyone else will be happy about it. So that's the third manifestation of fear in our life. The fourth one is when we become an outcast. Oh, and by the way, for me, for example, not just me, anyone out there can have fear manifesting in their life in different personas. So for me, I was the perfectionist and the procrastinator / perfectionist. And I also was the people pleaser. So I had both, right? And I was never the rule follower because, okay, I like following rules, but if they hurt me, I don't follow them. So that's that. The rule follower will actually go with the rule even if it hurts them. And when I finish this live, and you're gonna be thinking about this and looking at your life and doing those finding those places or those patterns in your life, you will see that sometimes you have more than one manifestation of fear in your life, and we all have it. Excuse me. We all have fears, one way or another. And I'm talking here specifically about the emotional fears. A lot of us have the other kinds of fears that are the rational, the primal, and the irrational ones. But these are not the emotional fears that are the center of my topic today, of my life. So those three that I've already spoken about. Now we go to the outcast persona or the outcast archetype. The outcast is that person who will put themselves in a cocoon. They will just kind of protect themselves and they will put themselves aside all the time just because they are afraid. So they become that outcast because they are afraid of being judged, because they are afraid of not being good enough. They are afraid of being pointed at. So all these fears make them become an outcast, and they kind of sit in the shadows and stay in the backstage. They're never that person who is an outgoing person who would want to talk, who would want to, and that's mainly because of fear. There's no other reason than fear for that kind of manifestation, that kind of persona, which is the outcast persona. And they are also afraid of what if. So they always, like this, their scenario is always the worst case scenario. Them and the next persona that I'm talking about, that I'm going to talk about, that is the self-doubter. So these two, they always look at the worst case scenario of everything, and they start putting themselves either in a, like the self-doubter is someone who is always afraid of not making the right decision or not doing the right thing or not being good enough, or so they always have this doubt, or what if I fail? What if I don't do things right? Let me tell you something. Failure is a given in life. If we don't fail, like this is how I think about it. If we don't fail, we will never understand the meaning of success. It just, for me, it's just not normal, or not, I don't want to say not normal, but it makes zero sense for me to understand the meaning of success or to know what success is if I never fail. I need to fail to understand what success feels like and what success is and what success means to me. My failures and my success are very related. Your failures and your successes are going to be completely different than the way you're going to feel them, the way you're going to live them is going to be definitely completely different than mine. But imagine your life with zero failure. How will you know if you are successful? How will you know if you succeed? There's no benchmark, how will you know? You know what I mean? So it's like you want to be able to taste your success. And in order to be able to taste your success, you should go through the opposite of that so that you can really taste it and enjoy that taste. Not just taste it. You want to enjoy it. You want to savor it. To be able to do that, you're going to have to go through that opposite feeling of bitterness when we fail, so that we can enjoy the sweetness of success and the yumminess of success. So being afraid all the time and not doing mistakes and not failing will never get you to this place, which is the success that I can bet my life on it. Everyone wants to be successful. Everyone, like nobody willingly doesn't want to be successful. Nobody willingly chooses to sit and stay in the shadows or stay in the background or stay, hidden or an outcast or a self-doubter, unless they are really, really led by their fear. And the fear is what is controlling everything for them in their life, in their present, in their past, in their future. And they always, like, because fear is so deeply rooted, it's like you're living in your past, even without knowing it. This is what was happening with me when I was going through that major, like, struggle in my mind. I want this, but I don't want this. I want this, but why? Because that fear of not having everything, because I was born in a country where things were not easy and we couldn't take anything for granted. Like here, like today, we take electricity for granted, for God's sake. We didn't have electricity back then. We still don't, by the way, but so we take having tap water for granted. This is not the case back then. So that's how deeply rooted the fear is. And if it's that deeply rooted and we keep it there and we let it be in control of our life, we won't ever get to the success that we want to get to. So the procrastinator / perfectionist, that was me, long time back. The rule follower, that was me. I follow rules, but the people pleaser, that was me. Then the outcast. And by the way, I was also an outcast when I was a kid. I spoke about this in one of my lives before, like how I used to be always on the side. Then the self-doubter. There are two more. The one I'm talking about now is the excuse maker. So that person whose fear manifests in becoming the person who always gives excuses for everything. No, not me. I did because of that. I didn't do because this. And always and always and always giving excuses. Always being afraid of taking responsibility for things. And again, if you notice, every time I'm talking about these personas, I'm using the word being afraid. Because fear in those persona is what is controlling everything. So that person, because they're afraid of taking responsibility, they're afraid of being accountable, they're afraid of making choices for themselves, they become that person who always gives an excuse. Why I'm not doing this, and why I'm not doing that, and why I'm not doing this, and why I'm not doing that. So that's the excuse maker, and this is how their fear manifests as becoming that person who's always giving excuses and always trying to get out of that responsibility. And the last one is the pessimist. The pessimist is a manifestation of fear. It's a manifestation of the fear of not knowing, the fear of what if something really, really bad happens? What's going to happen to me? Like, instead of thinking completely the opposite way, What if something good happens to me? The pessimist is a manifestation of that fear of the unknown, that fear of the scary side of the unknown. Because it's unknown, because it's unknown, we're afraid. We don't know. And pessimists are afraid specifically because they always look at everything in like, it's hard, it's difficult, it's negative. This is how I see them. Always looking at the negative side of things because they are afraid of the potential in positivity. And they don't know how they can deal with it because that fear is what is leading their life. Because that fear is in control. So the question is now, do we want to keep fear in control of our lives? If we always, like I always say, take a breath, right? And start thinking. Our brain is like a masterpiece. It's really a masterpiece. And we don't really use it as much as we should, as much as it's here for that. It exists for that. And we want to remember that everything is in our power. Everything is in our control. We are the creators. We are the decision makers. Even when we are afraid, by the way. It's true that fear is leading, but at the end of the day, we're the ones letting it. We are the ones allowing fear to take our power from us. We are the ones who have submitted to this emotion. And we are the ones who said, okay, take the lead. So the reason why I'm saying this is because if we are the originator of our situation or our state or the manifestation of fear in our life, I know I was the originator of my procrastination and my perfectionism. I have zero doubt about that. You know why? Because I'm not that anymore, because I took that decision of taking that control away from this fear, of taking that, like I took the decision to take that control that I initially gave. It didn't just impose itself on me. I didn't do it willingly and I didn't do it consciously, that's true, but I did it nonetheless. I did it. The minute I became aware, and this is the biggest lesson that anyone can take from today or from anything in your life. The minute you become aware of things is the minute where you can start doing that shift for yourself. Because if you're still not aware, if you're still letting or allowing things to happen for you subconsciously without knowing and without being in control and without being aware, then you won't be able to change because you actually don't even know what's happening. This is what was happening to me. I didn't even know at that time when I was working in the corporate world and when I was creating all this brouhaha, I like to call it, around me in my job, in my work. I was creating all of this because I didn't know what was happening. And because I was stuck in that fear. Even when I took the decision to leave and start on my own, I already said this earlier, even then I was still not totally aware of what was happening. So even then, my subconscious mind somehow, and I want to dig on this later. Actually, I want to dig on this and try to understand how my subconscious mind at that time like decided that yes, now we're going to have that courage, and allowed me, because at that time I really was not in control. I can assure you that I was not in control of my procrastination. I was not in control of my perfectionism. I was not in control of being that people pleaser. I was actually always that people pleaser. And a lot of people, I know for a fact that a lot of you are going to resonate with this. A lot of you are going to take this and think, oh my God, this is me. Oh no, this is me. Oh, I'm a combination of these 2 or 3 or 4 or even 7, because that's how many they are. So being aware of this and just acknowledging that awareness is the first step. Like I said in my post, knowing what kind of fear you have is already 50% of the problem solved, because now you know what manifestation you have in your life. Are you the procrastinator? Are you the rule follower? Are you the people pleaser? Are you the outcast? Are you the self-doubter? Like, I know I used to doubt myself a lot before, long time ago actually. So I was that at one season in my life, I was that self-doubter as well. Are you the excuse maker? Or are you the pessimist? Or are you a combination of some of these 7 types, or 7 types of fear manifestations in our lives? Most of the time, we don't stop to think about these things. Most of the time, because of how our life has been structured since we were born, we just go with the flow. We hardly stop and breathe and ask ourselves, and I always say this, like the first thing that led me to where I am today was me stopping and taking a breath and questioning and wondering, what if? I knew deep down inside that there was something in me that I wanted to get out. There was something in me that needed to be heard, that needed to be out there, or someone. That champion that I always talk about, that pearl, that champion that was hiding on the layers and layers and layers of restrictions, of limiting beliefs, of fears, of emotions, of experiences, or bad experiences, if I may say. So all of this, when that's not going with the flow, that's actually allowing life, or allowing everything external to become your ruler, instead of you being the champion that you are, and just allowing that champion to just get out there and be that. Just be that champion. And fear is one major emotion that always if we give it the power, it will control our life. So here's my question to you. Are you going to accept or to let fear take control and lead your life? Or are you going to become aware that you have those fears manifesting in your life? Are you going to become aware that you have the power to control all of this? Are you going to become aware that you are that champion? And are you going to let that champion come out? And instead of fear being manifested in your life, how about that champion being manifested in your life? So here's my invitation to you. Today, I want to invite you to actually allow that champion to manifest in your life. How? By becoming aware, by knowing what is limiting you, by knowing what is blocking you, and by understanding also that you have that strength, you have that power, you are that control unit in your life. Not anyone else, not an emotion, not a feeling, only you. So you are that champion. All you need to do is recognize that. All you want to do, all you want to choose to do is recognize that you are that champion. Recognize that you have that will, that you have that power, that you have that control. And just take it and become that leader in your own life. After all, it is your life. You're not living someone else's life. You are living your life. So remember that and be aware of that, and accordingly choose you. And that's my invitation to you. My other invitation to you is, if you have any doubts and if you feel like, but Mason, I don't know what to do, or I don't know how to do it, or I don't know which one I am, or I don't know how I can get over this, or I need help. Well, this is what I'm here for. And this is my invitation to you. If you feel like you are in this season of your life where you know you want to make a change, you know deep down inside that that you are meant to be more, that you are someone who wants to excel, who chooses to become even a better version of who you are. Because I truly believe that we are all great versions of us, but we want to excel. We want to always become even better. So if you are that person, and I'm here to help you, I'm here to guide you, I'm here to give you that hand and take you through that same process that I took myself through. But instead of you going through that hustle, I'm gonna be able to support you because I've been there and done that. And now I have the solution. I have the process that will help you get out of all of this, and that will help you shine that champion and bring that champion back to where it needs to be, which is the front of the stage instead of staying in the backstage. And if I can help you, and you know I can help you, just type Erika. Type Erika in the comments below and let me know by typing Erika that you are reaching out, and I will definitely message you and I will be contacting you so that we can together figure things out and understand where you are in that in your life, in that season of your life, and how I can help you with my expertise, with my experience of my own life and how I came out of it and how I let my own champion come to the front seat and be that person. So again, if you feel like this little, I can give you a push or I can help, type Erica in the comments and I'll make sure I'll reach out to you. And I hope you had a great live with me today. I enjoyed every bit of it. And with that, I will see you next week. And I'm going to say ciao, ciao. See you next week.